I'm getting ready to go to sleep. Like everybody's kind of winding down for bed. We're in a hotel room. Mythos. So this model release that was it was kind of almost legendary. People were talking about it, like it's so dangerous. And then I see other people posting about it. I'm like, well, I have to. Like I have to do something. Like I can't just go to sleep right now because stuff is happening. I recorded like in my car. There's like a person that was walking past my car that sees me in there with the vanity mirror and the light on me and the camera. He's got to look at me, and I'm like, I don't know if this is a good area.
Well, one of the big light bulb moments was actually got from my dad's brother. He was a super workaholic for forever. He has like a PhD in physics. He's like a KGB agent too. He told me, like, if you accomplish one thing or like 10 things in life, the universe is not going to notice any difference, you know?
Wes, could you tell everybody about Mythos? Because obviously that was big news, but like you were describing how that was supposed to be your time off.
Yeah, traveled a little bit. Thought I would have some time off, so I get this note. Actually, the person that we met at one of the conventions, he texts me. He's like, "Oh, have you seen this? Like, this is like late at night. I'm with my family. Where I'm not complaining that he's doing. I was very happy that he sent me the link, but I'm just giving kind of like the set. So I'm getting ready to go to sleep. Like everybody's kind of winding down for bed. We're in a hotel room, and I get that text, and I'm like, oh my god, Mythos. So this model release that it was kind of almost legendary. People were talking about it, like it's so dangerous. It can't be released, and finally gets released with the right sort of safety guardrails. And then the U.S. government basically pulls the plug on it, says, nope, shut it all down. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, then I see other people posting about it. I'm like, well, I have to. Like I have to do something. Like I can't just go to sleep right now because stuff is happening. And so yeah, I recorded like in my car. So I'm sitting there, and then at some point, like there's like a person that was walking past my car that sees me in there with the vanity mirror and the light on me and the camera. He's got to look at me, and I'm like actually, I don't know if this is a good area. like am I, because I'm outside of the hotel room and my car is sitting there with the lights on. I'm like, I've never been here before in my life. Is this like the type of area where you probably shouldn't be doing that? Like I have no idea, right?
YouTube fam, So when you look at the psychology of you're pretty much one vacation, the time you're supposed to be with your family, but big AI news drops, why do you feel that pressure? Because you're not going to get fired. Like nobody's going to take your YouTube channel from you. Why did you feel so much pressure? And do you think it was healthy looking back on it, or are you glad you addressed it?
It's so hard. That's a very like incisive question. It's a good one because there's a lot, I'm sure, like psychological issues that kind of like go with this. And so interesting talking to Eugene about it, because what he's saying is like getting off the grid and stuff like that. So I'll answer the question, but just really fast. In 2016, I started my e-commerce business. It did extremely well just because I knew exactly what I was doing, because I worked in that industry before. So I saw how people were building it, and then I took that knowledge and I just replicated, and the business did well. Not because I'm a genius, just because I learned. I learned from very smart people that figured it out and just replicated what they did. And so within a few years, it wasn't like I was rich, but I wasn't relying on a paycheck. I could like have a little bit more distance and create that space in my life. And that was nice, you know what I mean? And then the whole AI thing hit, ChatGPT and everything. And I just dove all into it. And I've never worked this hard in my life before, because, with e-commerce, there's a lot more stuff that you can automate, right? You can get a third-party fulfillment center to ship the orders. You can get somebody to answer the phones. Like everything's like automated. So when you're working on growing the business. But the day-to-day stuff you can automate. And then with this YouTube thing, you can't. And there's this quote where people were saying, hey, you can automate a lot of stuff with AI, right? But one thing you can't automate is understanding. That's exactly what you were talking about earlier. It's like we need to kind of like, I forget the word you use, digest the information for our audience, or we have to kind of like understand it, package it, and then present it in an understandable way. Like you can't outsource that. You can't. Unless you have somebody else writing the scripts for you and you're saying it, but then you're not learning. So the act of digesting large amounts of information and then being able to explain it, that's freak, especially because oftentimes it's brand new stuff. You know what I mean? Like a new model comes out, or there's a new concept, or there's a new paper. Like you can't shortcut that process if you're trying to get it out there for the first time. That is a very I think it's a metabolically demanding task, so to speak. And the reason, and I love it. It's like a drug, because not only do I get to like learn all that stuff, which has always been like a thing for me. I really enjoyed learning things fast and kind of, doing that stuff. But it's also like, I never want to lose that. I never want to lose what I'm doing. Like, it feels so amazing. Like, I just want to do this. And so what happens, why can't I relax a little bit? That's got to be some psychological thing. That's got to be some fear of loss. And maybe there's something that happened in my childhood that, I don't know. I mean, so me and Eugene, we were born in the Soviet Union. So I'm sure that comes with a lot of head trash to begin with, right? Kind of like, you know what I mean? Maybe just a little bit of not a scarcity mindset, but I mean, maybe just some fear that at some point you're going to be on the street freaking dying from hunger or something like that. So I don't know, but it's just, there's a certain fear. Like, I love what I do, but every time I stop and relax, there's guilt and fear and just all sorts of crap that weighs in, Eugene, so you don't get that. Because I mean, we were born in, I don't know if similar circumstance, but certainly similar sort of like, I mean, the USSR was kind of a wild place during kind of a wild time. Everything collapsed. We were less than 10 years old, I guess. So you are able to just chill, so to speak, right? Or
yeah, what's the trick?
What's the trick? Do you meditate?
Well, yeah, I could adjust this in two ways. I mean, my strategy is kind of that minimalist lifestyle, plus like working remote. I do coaching. I've been doing that
Yeah.
for like 20, 21 years already. So it's been quite a while. So I kind of set up a bit of a following. So I still got to work. It's not like I don't work, but it's not like 80-hour weeks under high pressure projects, Like holistic healthcare, it's not like emergency medicine. You know what I mean? Someone shows up with like 2 gunshot wounds to the chest and got to solve it like immediately right now in the next like 3 minutes or the person dies. It's more kind of like preventative care for the most part. So it's like the person may be sick, but they're still kind of functional. They might develop cancer in like 5 years if they keep doing what they're doing, but like so there isn't like that kind of pressure,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, my total expenses, it's like, not counting like what I would put into like an index fund, it's like 2,000 a month, That's it. And I live like a really nice, honestly, really good lifestyle. Like, no boss, like have a lot of autonomy. If I want to sleep in, I can sleep in. I don't start my work day until like noon or 1 p.m. Work out easily without feeling rushed, like 5 days a week. I go hiking 1 day a week. So it's like 6 workouts a week. Have access to really good food. Like I eat mainly like elk, deer, and wild fish, and like a lot of organic fruits and vegetables. Those little things. That's like, I think accessible to everyone for the most part. And those are my like key core values, So luckily I just kind of like was clear on what was important to me at a young age. And I was a little bit distracted here and there. Of course, it's tough not to get distracted from time to time living in society, but always kind of came back to those core values because I noticed like, hey, if I just keep doing these things, I'm very happy. I sleep very well. My blood panels look really good every year. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, I kind of like don't feel like nervous or anxious or, like I got to do this and that. I think one thing that's really helped a lot was, studying Stefan Walensky's work. That helped a lot. That goes into the study of the central nervous system as well. So kind of like you mentioned, like, why do I feel like I have to work, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you could be like in a competitive field too and competing against people that will outwork you and thus take your audience. So there's that aspect to remember too. But typically, like one way also the central nervous system gets you to survive better is by creating a personality for you. And it does this during, it kind of starts. Do you want to mention anything, Dylan?
No, that's just interesting. Like it creates the personality, because it probably is firing something, I'm guessing, that makes you want something, and then your mind makes up a story about it.
Yeah.
I found that interesting. So I just had a
Yeah,
weird reaction, but yeah.
that's somewhat actually how it happens. So it's like between the ages of 6 months and 12 months, the central nervous system starts creating a personality for you, and it does this through a like false core, like what's referred to in psychology as a false core, and uh, it's kind of like a fear-driven response. So everyone's going to be different. So it's like for some people, it could be the false core would be I'm worthless, and if you truly believe you are worthless, that's pretty hard to live with, so you're going to take a lot of action throughout your life to try to disprove that false core, and inevitably so you try to prove your worth the entire life, so typically, again, the central nervous system kind of mirrors what's around it. So if you're in academic circles, you'll then try to prove your worth by, getting more degrees or becoming a researcher or whatever.
Hmm.
If you're in military circles, you'll try to kind of get higher and higher rank or more power that way, just to prove like your worth. And inevitably, the false self is created to disprove the false core. And it does enhance your survival. You know what I mean? But just the problem is the false core is kind of like, you can look at it as like a false conclusion, and you'll
Hmm.
never come up with the right answer from a false conclusion, So what ends up happening is you achieve something, like you get to 100,000 subscribers on your channel, and you're like, oh, dude, I'm the man. You know what I mean? This is amazing. Now I feel safe and secure and like I'm loved and this and that. And like a year or two goes by, it's like, oh, that's not enough. Now I need 200,000. You know what I mean? And that's the job of the central nervous system, to constantly look outward
Hmm.
and accumulate more and more and more. And it does this through the false self. But the problem is the false self, although it will enhance your survival in the external world, the best it could do, once your biological needs are met, of course, is just provide sugar highs at best. That's it. And you could even make like $1 million today. And I guarantee you in like 5 years from now, you'll be wanting to make like $5 million a year. You know what I mean? And that will satisfy you for a few years, and then on, and it kind of repeats itself at a certain point, especially when a person is, more self-aware. They begin to realize this is a never-ending cycle. You know what I mean? And they're like,
Hmm.
that's why you see like a lot of, like maybe very wealthy businessmen develop drug addictions, or, actors is very common with drug addictions. It's like that false self will never, it's stressful to keep feeding it too, because every time you try to level up, you expose yourself to more stress, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And stuff like that. And it provides this circle of like, it's kind of like never enough and stuff of that sort. So kind of like, and if you look, it's very interesting, like thoughts, they arise out of nowhere, and then they stay for a while. You kind of notice it and they subside into nowhere again. And then another thought pops up, and it does this all day, but it happens so fast. It's like a film, like a movie film. And you see it as a motion picture, but really it's just a bunch of small little pictures with a space in between, you know? And if you look at it, it's like, where do you get all your ideas about yourself? From your memories, your thoughts, they all come from your thoughts, from your past history, et cetera, but where do you go in between those small little spaces, which actually take up the bulk majority of any second of time? You know what I mean? You disappear,
Yeah.
but
And this
there's
is,
something watching it. Like the funny thing is, it's like, a lot of people say like, oh, I changed my mind. I think it's more appropriate to say the mind,
Mhm.
but like, I changed my mind. Uh, So who is that I that's changing the mind? And if you're observing something, if you're observing your thoughts, you can't possibly be them. Just like the retina of the eye cannot see itself, you know?
Yeah. This is getting, we've talked a little bit about this on some of the previous shows. This is such an interesting subject to me. And for people that are not familiar, uh, there's certain activities and things that we do that can kind of like detach us from ego, or just how close we identify with ourselves and our sort of like what we see and think and feel, like meditation, psychedelics, things like that, kind of allows, what's the word? Is it detachment? It's not detachment. It's when you completely sort of separate from yourself. Um, And it gives you a glimpse. Sorry, Dylan, what?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, detachment seems right, but I don't know. Sorry, I was just trying to help you with that word, but
Yeah, I feel like there's a better word. I'm
like
blanking on
enlightenment or something. Is it like when you're meditating and you step back from your thoughts and sort of notice them?
disassociation. So
Oh,
you disassociate from who you are. So it's kind of like detachment, but it's like more like specific. That's the word I was looking for. So basically, you become like something else. You start questioning, like what Eugene was saying. So you realize, oh, I am the observer. Like these thoughts that are popping up, I'm not controlling them. They're just like pop, and I observe them, and I can sort of decide what to do with them. But you realize who you think you are is more like a conductor as opposed to like everything. And so then you allow yourself to. It helps because you're able to control some base instincts a little bit better. And it's interesting what we're talking about is sort of like the idea of Buddhism. I think they really captured it really well because it's like, what causes suffering, right? And the Buddhist idea was, well, if you want things, you're going to suffer because you might not get them or you're going to want some other things. Like as long as you don't want anything, there's no suffering. So if you kind of like disconnect yourself from that, and I think most spiritual practices, most of them, I feel like on one level or another kind of talk about this idea is like, transcend this world a little bit, transcend your body, the world, your wants, etc. And what I've been studying recently quite a bit, there's been this fascination, is the DNS, the default
mode
mode,
network,
D,
DMN,
DM, default mode network, DMS.
DMN, yeah.
Oh, DMN. Thank you. Yeah.
Right?
So
Default mode network?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
That
No,
part
no.
of the brain that's kind of going, yeah.
I warned them before we started recording. I'm like, I'm a little bit out of it because I think I've been
Dude,
dealing with a lot of
acronyms they get us all mixed up, you know?
But the point is, I think we have certain different areas of our brain that work different ways that light up. So if you're engaged in some activity, there's like the activity mode of our brain. And then we have the default mode network, which is kind of like, interestingly, it's kind of like it's the idling mind. So when you're not doing anything else, it goes into this space, and you can see it with the brain scans. And it's kind of like the idling. So like when a car is idling, the RPMs, go down and kind of, so it's not off, but it's like hovering close to zero. What's interesting is when we're looking at the activity in that network, instead of like low, it almost turns up. So the amount of calories and sort of metabolic processes, they're high, which researchers found very interesting. So what they realized is that's the part of our brain that kind of integrates all our memories, what's happening, and tries to make sense in the world and integrate it with how we perceive ourselves. So it's kind of that like rumination, daydreaming, kind of that state, right? And it kind of like the default that everything goes into. And I think what happens when you're like burnt out is that part of you, and people with ADHD have this apparently quite a bit, it starts kind of messing with you. Because instead of like trying to integrate stuff, it's like, well, what if you're an idiot? What if you're, a piece of crap? And then what if like this bad things happen, right? So it almost becomes like this panic thing that can lead to rumination that engages like the stress response, the fear response. But the more you study this, and I think this goes to what Eugene was saying, is like you start realizing how a lot of the stuff that we are is like almost like a machine, and you can understand the different parts. And it's important to distance yourself away from it and detach yourself away from it, because then, first of all, I think Buddha nailed it. There's going to be a lot less suffering if you can understand that most of the stuff is self-inflicted, or we choose to chase it and we choose to engage in the practices. And like Seneca and the Stoics, they say one of the things you should practice is like once a quarter or once a year or whatever, take a day where you just you eat the cheapest of food and wear the cheapest of clothes, and just like put yourself in the conditions that you fear, and ask yourself, is this what I fear so much? And the question is like, no. Because like when I tell people about my, like in Russia when everything collapsed, like it was very poverty stricken. So you talk to people here in the United States, they're like, oh, it must have been horrible. I was like, nah, like I was a kid, I was happy. Is whatever. Like we didn't know any better. You know what I mean? So it's like our worst nightmares are usually not as bad as we think they are. And it's the suffering we create our own suffering, if that makes sense. I don't know where I was going with that, but I figured I'd jump in there.
I mean, yeah, Eugene, I mean, if you talked a little bit about finance, but any strategies, like I think it'd be good to just talk about actionables. Like I
Yeah.
mean, you could rewild your gut, like make it even more simple, like go buy an orange or something, or what's like a way to just get somebody going down this direction if they're an overwhelmed tech person?
Yeah.
Well, I think I mentioned those very actionable steps of how to free up your finances quite a bit,
Yeah.
in terms of getting rid of your house or rent or house or mortgage or whatever and car payment. I think those are huge. And if people just accomplish that and uh, just kind of watch out for their non-essential spending, I mean, that alone can save you, I don't know, on the low end, 25, 30, 35,000 a year. That's like life-changing money for not everyone, but for most people, if they
What,
save that year after year.
what do you think about a mentality shift too, though? Because I could imagine lowering my costs and having more time because I don't need to work for somebody, but also I'd still feel a sense of falling behind or not keeping up with the world. Like, how do you sort of watch AI do these amazing things, but not need to read about them all and worry about them all and prepare for them all?
Well, Dylan, it goes back to your core values and kind of what you believe in, So that question is no one can answer except you, honestly. You know what I mean? And one of my favorite authors, like I mentioned, is Stefan Wolinski. He's like, oh, like honest change in life can never, ever, ever happen until you stop believing the lies you tell yourself. So it's so important to kind of like be very clear on what you want to just do that and not look over your shoulder because um, even a good friend, although they might mean the best, it's like when you ask them for what you should be doing or what's important to you, they just will instinctually imprint their core values onto you. You know what I mean? And coincidentally, it may be your core values too, but maybe not. Most of the time, it's not because nature is such a novelty generator. Of course, there's like duality and non-duality. We can have that conversation, but it's like no two even drops of water are the same. You know, so it's the same with humans as well. Um, in terms of if you're really into it, I mean, you want to become the observer of your thoughts, and kind of stop identifying with your false core and false self, because a lot of that trying to keep up mentality, especially when you already have the financial freedom to not keep up with it, could be simply due to maybe like if you're a type 1 personality feeling imperfect and constantly then feeling like you're not perfect by not keeping up with anything. Or if you're like a type A, your self core is like feeling powerless. So if you don't keep up with the AI thing, then you'll lose your power, you know what I mean? And it'll remind you of your false core constantly. So it depends on how hardcore you want to get into it. But I mean, if you want to, like there, the absolute most strict version of that is to learn how to stay before your next thought. So just basically discard all your thoughts. So like I mentioned, the thought pops up, there's a small space before the next thought. Just learn how to stay in that small space. And all your
Mhm.
need to kind of, keep up or your fears will kind of disappear. Because you notice all these thoughts kind of come and go, they're discontinuous. But whoever is observing them or whatever is observing them, which is your true actual identity, is continuous. And if you just turn your attention inward and try to observe what that is, then you'll find out who you actually are.
Yeah. This is very deep, and this is something that it's interesting because I've been studying a lot of the same stuff that you're talking about. It seems like we're in parallel because we haven't talked for a while, but it seems like we were in parallel thinking about this stuff. So Stephen Wolinski, he is the founder of Quantum Psychology, so multiple books. I've not as I looked it up, I realized I've heard of some of the ideas before, but I'm definitely going to check it out more because this seems very, very interesting. To kind of echo what Eugene, what you're saying. So, and please, this is just for entertainment purposes only. Please don't follow any of our advice here. Unless check with your
Yeah, don't follow our advice.
this podcast should not be listened to by anyone. But so for me, as a young adult in California, I've tried psychedelics a few times, just like several times. And the first time, for what I realized is it feels like, you have these sort of volume knobs on a lot of the thoughts and feelings and like wants and urges. And it seemed like that a lot of them were turned down. So kind of like your sense of identity and here's what I want and what's on the schedule and what's, like the thoughts, the next thought, like just like you were talking about, like the volume was turned down. And what I realized is behind it all, it almost felt like there's another sound that must have been playing all this time, like another melody or another sound that was there all along, is just the volume on this day-to-day stuff and all the stuff that our brain throws at us. It was turned up so much that you never hear it. And that was my realization, like the first time I did it. And so the next time I did, I was like, what is that thing? Like I felt I really wanted to get my hands on it. Like, what is that thing that I'm hearing? Because I didn't have a name for it. I didn't even know what the concept was. And it's interesting because Steve Jobs and many other people have referred to it. So Steve Jobs said that doing LSD in his younger days, and he said more people should do it. He said Bill Gates should do it, more LSD, because then he wouldn't be such an a-hole.
Oh, really?
Something like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I have not heard that.
What he was saying is doing that gives you the glimpse of the other side of the coin, which is another way of saying kind of, I think, exactly because we don't really have words for it. So Steve Jobs described as the other side of the coin. For me, as I was thinking about it, I was realizing the thing that came to my mind as a way to describe it is like time is like this ocean, and we're just skipping along the surface. Like we're interacting with each moment very briefly, and we're just going on to the next, to the next, to the next. We're like that rock that's skipping across the surface of the ocean, and each moment is like infinitely deep. So it's this idea of like the depth of the moment is really like what popped up for me, because you can live in The Power of Now. Eckhart Tolle, I think, was one of the better books kind of like talking about that. So yeah, that's basically kind of like echoing what Eugene is saying. Like for me, this has also been like a trek that I'm on and something that I've been studying. And for people that are maybe not familiar, look into it, because boy, does it seem important and foundational. And it's almost like I feel like whatever the meaning of life is, this thing that we're trying to describe here, I think it's somehow part of that. It's not the whole thing, but it's part of it. You have to experience it before you die, I feel like.
Yeah. And to touch base, I think when you stay in a fast-paced society, you have to lean heavily into your false self to survive, you know?
Yeah.
So it kind of takes you further away from your essential core. It makes it very tough. Some people can do it, but it's going to be very, very hard then to lean into that essential core when you constantly have to spend 8 to 10 hours a day in your false self and improving it and tinkering with it and enhancing it. You know what I mean? So it's another thing to think about in a healing journey, because it's very exhausting. The false self creates great things. It gets jobs done. It wins wars, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't, at the end of the day, provide like fulfillment for the individual. And if they're not careful, then they can get into this loop of like, hey, I've already been around this circle like 50 times and it's the same damn story. And I feel more empty and miserable every time. And then they get into drug addiction and whatever, you know what I mean? Or promiscuous sex or even socially acceptable activities like becoming a workaholic,
Yeah, just more money, more money.
Yeah, that's a very common form of dissociation in America. But again, it just produces more misery for the individual.
Do you consider yourself to be a Stoic? Or like what do you call yourself, your life philosophy? Or
I don't know.
Is it nihilism, Stoicism, or is it something like more
living like a human being, man?
Okay.
not very marked, bro. I guess I don't have like a name for it. It's just kind of like do my thing, and I know like one day it's going to be over and I'll just go back into atomic matter, just like with everything else. And so I don't have a name for it. I wish I.
So you consider yourself just be like an avid reader, and when you're just trying to think about like being in that moment. I mean, because I guess you're not on TikTok or short form media? Are you able to avoid all those traps too, for the most
Well, I
part?
recently got banned from freaking Instagram. But
Oh,
yeah, I'm on all that stuff. That's how I
Uh,
run my online business. But I kind of treat
oh,
it very passively. Like I go there, post, and as
Rewa
sometimes people reach out for coaching.
I want to double click on the band portion. Let's not skip over that. What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's like I logged into a new location
Oh,
and Meta asked me to provide a driver's license. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I provided, and they're like, you don't look like this. I'm like, dude, I don't know what you said. I don't know what you want me to say. I look like a freaking driver's license. As I think
Yeah.
they're just rolling out this whole like AI security thing. And it was
Mhm.
clear like an AI bot was talking to me in the chat. It
yeah.
didn't sound like a human at all. And they're like, well, we're gonna ban you. And I'm like, okay. And I'm still trying to appeal it, but it's been like 2 months. I don't even know if I'm going to get it back, but whatever.
Mhm.
Whatever happens, happens. Yeah, but I
Oh,
go in there, I post, and that's it, man. I call it a day. I don't kind of
I mean,
scroll
whatever
around
happens,
or,
happens. That's such a great mentality to have. But if my Instagram got banned just because I didn't look like my ID,
Yeah. It's very
yeah.
stoic. It's a very stoic.
maybe
I think it's good that you're not labeling it. But we don't need exact labels for it. But it does very reminiscent of like the Stoic philosophy, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, all of that stuff.
But I
Um,
think that's the cool part about, having, not have to pay for, rent or like a car payment. Because maybe if I was paycheck to paycheck, I would be a lot more nervous. You know what I mean? If I had
mhm,
huge
mhm.
overhead. So that's another cool benefit that could reap a tremendous amount of benefits for your health long term. Because everyone's going to run into some weird thing in life. You know what I mean? And if you're like very financially strapped or have like huge overhead that requires like a lot to sustain it, a lot of times just the house crumbles. For most people, not everyone, but like I mentioned, 85% of personal bankruptcies are due to health issues.
Yeah.
And the average American has like I think last time I looked into it is like $800 in their bank account for emergency. Dude, it's like getting almost like going to the doctors and getting like a splinter removed from your finger is like $800 these days.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I don't want to go down that path. It does feel like we're on some unsustainable course. There's seemingly a K-shaped economy that's more and more like pronounced. And I'm worried about AI and how it intersects with everything. That's just a whole other um,
We
rabbit
should
hole.
make it a game. Like try to stress you out. Can we get Eugene stressed? We have so
Yeah,
much we could dump
Eugene.
on you.
Um,
Well, I mean, a question for you guys is the AI thing. I mean, my prediction is like the GDP will actually go up, but employment will go up at the same time. I don't know if you guys think that's true or not. I don't
unemployment,
know.
or did you say unemployment or employment?
Yeah, unemployment.
Unemployment. Well, Dylan, what's your take? Because I mean, I've recently, I don't want to say did a 180, but I've been slowly
Oh,
realizing that my initial instincts were wrong. But Dylan, what's your,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, we had like Julia McCoy who's like, now because of AI, I have all this free time. And for me and you, it seems like, oh, now I have 10 things
yeah,
that I'm in charge of now instead of 3 things. So I don't know if we're just different people or like treating it different. But yeah, I feel like engineers that have jobs are getting dumped. Like they're expected to do multiple times the work, and they probably will create even more money for the companies, and those companies probably will give them bigger raises to keep them around, but then they'll have to take on 30 or 40 times and stuff like that. So I don't know. It just feels like some are winning and some are losing, and I'm not quite sure. Technology usually does create more opportunities, and a million people can start their own business now, so maybe.
yeah. And I mean, my initial thing going into it was, yeah, of course, it's going to automate everything. Unemployment is going to skyrocket. We need some form of UBI or something like that. I was like, this is obvious. But then over time, more and more people were saying, well, no, because it doesn't replace, it just like augments our abilities. And like when I look at my life, I'm not working less, I'm working more, and I can do more. And it just like enables me to do so much more stuff and take on so many more projects. And many people that use AI, they're all saying that. Dan Shipper of Every, he did a great post about like how to, I forget what it was called, but it was kind of along the similar lines. So a lot of the people that are using this technology on a daily basis, they're seeing in their own lives exactly the opposite. They're saying that, so the people that maybe weren't as good at certain stuff before, it levels the playing field, right? So if your English wasn't as great, it helps you write better English, whatever, you know what I mean? If your coding skills weren't as good, it allows you to code. You know, your design skills, you can design, it allows you to, so it almost like, sort of like allows more people to do all the basic activities better and better and better and better. So it levels the playing field in that sense. And also at the same time, for the truly high performance, it just like gives you more bandwidth upwards. So, you know, Eugene, I up to like a few months ago thought that yes, unemployment is going to skyrocket. Last few months, I'm like, I don't know. I'm confused because that's not what I'm seeing at the kind of like at the frontier of it. So we're like in a very, very interesting situation right now, because, you know, a lot of, you know, people like Bernie Sanders were saying, let's take 50% of these AI labs. I I don't know if that's the correct way of going about it, unless they do it where it's like distributed to the people instead of going back to the government. But that could be, you know, the whole thing of like being born in the USSR. I'm like, nope, like don't trust them. You know, make sure it's distributed, have some sort of a like guaranteed payouts. And maybe even it's like we're not even there yet. I think we need a plan for what happens if unemployment shoots up. We need like a model of what the governments can do to kind of affect that. But I am trying to keep an open mind about it because right now what we're seeing is different from what we sort of assumed initially. So.
Yeah. I find, to go back to one of your points, I find not always no absolutes, but the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior
Yep.
oftentimes.
Yeah.
And whenever new technology is introduced, it's advertised as like you'll do less work for humanity. But because the false self in the central nervous system is always trying to survive at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get high population density and there are other central nervous system trying to survive at all costs, it creates a hyper competitive environment, even
Yeah.
locally. And then there's the international issue, you know what I
Or
mean? Like,
just
oh, if we don't,
online, just
yeah,
social media, right?
or if we're like, we don't keep up with it, like China will surpass us, you know, or
Right.
whatever, you know? And it goes back to, again, the false self kind of now having this ultra fuel to create even a bigger fire, you know what I mean? So I think it'll create even put more stress. Maybe people will be laid off, but the people that remain in their jobs now, they're going to be like beyond stressed. You know what I mean? I think, but I could be wrong. But if you look at past trends, that's exactly what happens. When the factory was introduced, it's like, oh, we'll have to do way less work.
Yeah.
But everyone's
Right, what
working
happened to
so
that?
much
Yeah.
more, you know what I mean? So I don't know. We'll see. I'm okay with being wrong, but I highly doubt that it will be in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's probably going to be just more work and more automation, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be doing less jobs, maybe just different jobs. Yeah, a fascinating subject. For people that are interested in maybe a little bit more of kind of like how to get off the grid and make money or save money effectively. So Mr. Money Mustache was the original kind of, you've heard about it. Like, and that was this whole thing. I'm sure you've read a lot of his stuff, like just put money in the index fund and live on, you know, I think he had a 4% savings withdrawal rate, and that allowed him to kind of perpetually live on his savings. He was in tech and he made enough money and was able to retire and kind of live how he wants to. So maybe that's like maybe a model for people to follow that are in tech, because here's somebody that did it. That might be a good approach, because it does sound like foundationally, if you can escape the rat race, escape the matrix, you can do a lot more for your health than somebody that's perpetually stuck in that loop.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. It's the difference between living a health-centered lifestyle and a work-centered lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Two-way different. Health-centered lifestyle, all your goals and everything are centered around your mental and physical health, and whatever time you have remaining, then you could attend to other matters. Where the work-centered lifestyle that doesn't work is the majority of your day is taken up by work, and then whatever remaining time you have, you allocate to your mental and physical health. No absolutes. You get failures in both models, but it's very hard. Like I mentioned with the stats, 9 out of 10 Americans are metabolically sick. Most are on medical drugs. Americans are mentally and physically the sickest humans in all of human history and remain. They're like 4 stages to change. First stage is being problem unaware.
Mhm.
90% of people are still in the problem unaware stage. They don't even see that as abnormal. That's the most disappointing part because they've been given the wrong information on how to live life sustainably. But it's all they've had and it's all everyone around them does. So it's hard to see any difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the other thing that I want to touch on is you've always been in great shape. And it seems like you've always been able to stay in pretty great shape, stay jacked, very physically fit. No matter like where you are, what you're doing, how do you accomplish that? What role does that play? Because obviously fitness is incredibly important for health, longevity, stuff like that. So maybe give us a little bit of a guide for that. Like how do you approach that personally?
Yeah, I think the wildatarian diet, like I mentioned, which is accessible to kind of everyone, you know, um, that plays the biggest role. Sleeping. I have this cool, like, I'm really proud of this minimalist Japanese bed I built out. It's like on a wooden frame. It's like
Yeah,
4 inches off the ground on slates. So 4 inches off the ground, it kind of allows a lot more air circulation, especially if futon's like cotton, like 100% cotton, because it soaks heat out of your body and kind of then disperses it through the floor. So it's very good for hot sleepers.
yeah,
Um,
I got to do that.
Honestly, it's so simple, man. I think just consistency is king, probably like what Dylan has in his schedule.
But
I just lift weights like
you
4 days
lift,
a
yeah,
week.
yeah. You said
Yeah,
three
lift
days a week,
weights 4 days a week.
4 days a week.
I do 2 upper and 2 lower body workouts, and then sometimes I do a fifth one if I'm feeling like it, and then do 2 stretching sessions, and I just go hiking like once a week.
What
That's it.
about stuff
Oh,
with people? Like, are you hiking with friends? Are you playing any kind of sports, or like what do you do for the social health?
I'm like super mega introverted. Okay, so I go out maybe like once a month. I go drive down into town or something. And I had a book club before, but then like I made a mistake of leaving it for a little while. I thought it would continue. It kind of grew to like 15 people at one point. Yeah, but then when I came back, everyone was gone. So I'm going to try to kind of rebuild that book club. Um, that's it. I don't really socialize too much, honestly. I just really like the solitude of living alone, and that's it. So
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that for people, I'm a little bit more like that as well. So I think that makes it easier for stuff like that. I think some people are just wired to need the social, and I think in general, I mean, if you have enough social activity, like it makes you happier, you live longer, stuff like that. But I feel like if you're just wired to need a little bit less, I don't know if it's better or just easier to get the same dose. But yeah, for me, certainly, I'm okay spending more time alone than I think most other people do. So we've covered so much. This was so interesting. Hopefully, we've given people enough sort of maybe some actual advice, some actionable steps to take. I'll leave some links to all the various people that we've talked about. The fact that you've went to school and studied under Dr. Donald Hoffman is incredible because that interview that I've listened to him just like blew my mind. It was so because that this idea that we have this like user interface, like a operating system that we're clicking on, and it's not really there, it's just so that we can interact with the world. It was a very mind bending sort of concept. Well, let me ask you this. So let me ask first, Dylan, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or mention or anything like that?
No, I think I think it's something I'd love to hear different strategies because I feel like I'm striving towards that. I envision so the way I think about exponential growth and like what's about to happen is we're kind of entering this world where Claude Code's kind of like programming Claude Code, and then everyone will like kind of vibe code all these things, and all these opportunities will be here, and robots will do stuff. And I imagine waking up in 3 or 4 years and like reading the news, AI is going to do things like maybe invent a new material science and propose we build a space elevator, and the government will like green light that or something, and it'll be like something we can't even imagine now, but it'll happen so quickly. And if I try to sit there and synthesize all of it, I'm going to be overwhelmed. Like I'm already kind of getting there. There's already too much information. So I feel like us and our audience, like we have to build some kind of who am I? Like I don't need to be this leaf in the wind, because the wind is like becoming a hurricane. So yeah, I'm kind of all for these strategies. I don't have it figured out, but I'm noticing that that's like where one of my pain points is, and it needs to really be addressed. So it was a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Eugene, anything else that we haven't covered that you think is interesting? Anything else that we need to talk about?
No, I think that's great. I follow your guys' show to keep up with AI news a little bit, you know. I was wondering, I'm like, man, how does Wes freaking post so damn often? Not get so burned out, you know? And then he's like, oh, I'm burned out,
Burn
Eugene.
out.
You know? Yeah.
No free lunch.
No free
Because,
lunch.
you know, some people can do it, you know, maybe one out of every few hundred. If they're like super aligned with their core values and super aligned with their health practices, they could kind of push the pedal for quite a bit longer. So, you know, sometimes it can happen.
It exists. I know it exists. And I just wonder if it's like completely genetic, or they figured out certain practices that exist that maybe, I'm not sure, but I know that for me personally, I do need to have some time during the day where like right now I feel useless when I take rest, but that's what I need to do without guilt, without whatever, just where you're like just wasting time. You have to waste time and rest. And I think that's part of having a healthy psyche and then part of health and just stress reduction. And I didn't allow that now for multiple years. And because it's always like, go, go, go. If I have some time, I need to work out. I need to get groceries. I need to do this. And, you know, there's got to be some balance, like the yin yang symbol. You got to have a little bit of that sort of like just kind of just lounging around for a little bit. So that's going to be my next goal.
Well, one of the big light bulb moments was actually got from my dad's brother.
Mm-hmm.
He has like, he was a super workaholic for forever. He has like a PhD in physics. He's like a KGB agent too. Now he's like a kind of like a real estate lawyer or whatever in Moscow. And he told me, like, if you accomplish one thing or like 10 things in life, the universe is not going to notice any difference, you know?
Yeah.
And that kind of hit a spark. It's like, yeah, I mean, objectively, if you look at it, it's like there's like billions of galaxies, and each one galaxy has like trillions of stars. And you're like you're not even a star. You're like a planet. You're like a speck in a planet in a galaxy, you know, out of billions. It's like, dude, if you like, if the Earth blew up today, it's like nothing. Even the Milky Way galaxy isn't going to notice something freaking missing, dude.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of happiness. This was another Tim Ferriss interview with there was this doctor that studies happiness. He's saying like one of the primary ways to tap into that is like find ways to make yourself feel small. So when you're looking out there in the universe, like you're saying, like universe is not going to notice if you do 10 things. Like you're sort of like minimizing your importance. You know what I mean? You're letting go of that, like importance that we attach to ourselves. I think that's super important. But that's very interesting because I know your entire family is incredibly high achieving, high accomplished people. So it's so interesting to hear that that's, at least with your dad's brother, like that's the mentality, is like, let go of your importance. Do you think that's something that's universal across high achievers?
Well, I think I had a different background because I was actually raised by my grandmother the majority of the time. And she lived off grid her whole entire life.
Mm-hmm.
She's like an old believer. She's like never connected to industry, like nothing. So I had that kind of reference point, and that always kind of vibed with me. Of course, when I came into America, it's like especially we went to like uni, you know, it's like a hyper competitive environment, like Orange County. And of course, like my false self felt threatened, you know, and needed to survive. But once you kind of see it and you see it's kind of like, it's not you, you know, you could decide if you want to merge with it, you can, but you don't have to, you know. I think it always comes back to just like being crystal clear on like what you want for yourself. And unfortunately, just a lot of times, the only way to know that is by first doing stuff you don't want to do. And then being intuitive that that's not what you want to keep doing. And then kind of use that as a reference point to kind of narrow down then what you do want.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of sounds cheesy, but it's kind of like looking inward will give you the best answers, presuming you're not like already very sick. Because a lot of times if you're highly inflamed and very sick, it kind of, inflammation starts in the body and it leads to inflammation in the brain, which distorts your consciousness. So that's another obstacle to consider for most people. 9 out of 10 are metabolically sick now, So
Yeah.
it's going to give them distorted answers, and lead them down to another false path.
And I absolutely can second this because I know that when I'm so I feel like I have a pretty good, whatever you want to call it, gut sense for things or instincts or whatever, intuition. And all of that just goes right out the window if I'm inflamed, highly stressed out, because then it's like not that sort of like deeper part of you. It's like the amygdala is like, no, you're going to die. It's death is around the corner. And you're like, really? Is that my intuition or is that something else? Like,
For sure. Yeah, I think that same thing. It's amazing how I can tell when I'm underslept and I'm like, you know what, today is just fast food day. Like, today I'm just going to like make that move. I know it's not good for long term, but I just can't think far enough into the future. It's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah, this health stuff is just should be at the foundational level of everything, I think. So
you played hockey together as a hockey team?
Yeah, we grew up
I think we were even friends way before then, like middle school even, or even, I don't know, earlier.
cool.
Oh, you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Irvine in the 90s, that's where we grew up, Irvine, California, UCI, kind of that area. It was a trip, man, because like it was so like idyllic. It was so like this jewel in time almost. And going from USSR, which has collapsed and became like the, Russian Federation, well, whatever it is, you know what I mean? And then, so we went from, or at least this was my experience, went from like a really poor, somewhat dangerous, kind of like not the best place where everything was just super not stable. And then put, in this Orange County, it's right next to like a Newport Beach, like top 1%, you know what I mean? And like, we weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination, but just living there, like I remember me and my mom, we visited like a grocery store, which, we saw like all the fruit aisle and we were just like dancing around like the bananas, like, oh my God, like, look at this. Like there's like just an abundance of food and stuff like that. So anyways, it just blew my mind to be able to like grow up there in that time. Did you have the same experience, Eugene? I wonder.
I mean, I enjoyed Irvine. I think it's still like really cool.
Yeah.
The reason I moved out is I just got this cool opportunity to buy the triplex and stuff like that, and I'm like, I could live a much easier life and stuff like that here and just basically do the same stuff I'm interested in. And stuff of that sort. So just did. It's like very green here as well. So I kind of enjoyed it with a lot of rivers.
Yeah, definitely. For people that can live in nature, I definitely recommend it. It's I think there's tons of benefits just by passively being around nature. I think there's tons of use cases, benefits for that. So let me hit stop record, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Okay, see ya.